Hello, it's been a while. I thought that considering I talk about productivity a lot, maybe I could just make a video with everything all in one place. Oh, Slack. Hello. Nope. Sorry. Like a productivity boot camp for how to become more productive. Like, I think the reason I'm good at productivity, and I know like, oh, she's so full of herself, but like I'm really good at productivity. Like, I can tell you that I will back myself till the ends of time in terms of productivity. And I think that is because I'm actually really lazy. Like, I hate things taking longer than they need to take. Like, why am I sitting here doing this when I could have just got it done? Like, it's not an obsession with work, it's an obsession with like, why am I sitting here for 4 hours when I could have got this done in 1 hour and then spent 3 hours cuddling my dog? But it goes without saying that you do not need to be productive all the time. In fact, the definition of productivity is about doing the maximum in the least time possible. It's not about working all the time. Like, this like whole fucking sleep when you're dead, hustlers unite, hashtag with a lion in the background, can die. I basically believe that sometimes productivity is a form of self-care. If you think of the definition of self-care, caring for yourself, sometimes the most caring thing you can do is reach a deadline, push a bit harder when you have goals to reach, and now you're being like, yeah, I can do them in 3 days time. That to me is self-care, just as much as having a bath when you need to have a bath, not just because you're dirty, but because like you need some rest and relaxation. I refuse to believe that self-care is just about relaxation, because like we all need to pay our bills. Also important to say before I go into like all these productivity tips is this will be different for you if you have ADHD. I cannot stress that enough. I don't have ADHD, so I can't see it from your point of view. What I can say is you're likely to procrastinate a lot more. You're likely to find it a lot harder to prioritize, and this is just a generalization based on symptoms of ADHD, but I think that's really important when I like sit here and I'm like, here's how you be more productive. Like, I'm not up against that. What I will say is I would say I have had the most love for these kind of like tips from the ADHD community, because they're all about organizing, visibility and prioritizing so that you can get things done. So that was a huge ramble, which comes as a surprise to no one, but we're gonna get into some productivity tips and change our lives. And by change our lives, I just mean like just be like a little bit better every day. That's nice, that's nice. It makes a big change. Okay, so first things first, the plain truth is that we all need to work, and when we're working, we're better off like working smart, so being productive, efficient, effective, which means we're going to have more time to do more of what we love, whether that is like more working or more playing. That being said, on the whole like working smart thing, I don't buy this whole like work smart so you don't have to work hard thing. First of all, fuck off. Second of all, like working smart is hard. It's hard to be able to get systems in place to be able to work smart and work effectively and kind of like get to know yourself well enough to know when you need to push, when you need to hold back, all of these different things. So I feel like, yeah, sure, like work smart, that's all about like productivity, effectiveness and efficiency, which we'll go into, but ultimately at the end of the day, that isn't easy. Like, work is always going to have an element of like hardness to it, and I feel like this online narrative of like do something you love so you'll never work a day in your life, it's just such a fucking shambles. And shut up, like grow up. We all know that even if you're doing something you love, and in fact if you're doing something you love, you'll probably burn out easier, you won't know when to stop, you're so emotionally attached to it that you're probably going to drain yourself so much easier. But like, it's creating this expectation that work is gonna be fun, and like I do think that we as a generation, I don't know how old you are watching this, but I do think as like kind of like Gen Z and millennials, we've kind of dropped this idea that we have to work super hard all the time for like 30 years to like move up and only stay in one career and like all of these different things. But ultimately this expectation that we're gonna like absolutely love our work, I think is just, if we have that in our heads, we're setting ourselves up for failure. But that's a lot deeper and we don't need to go into that today. Right lads, tip number one, the life-changing, the one, the only, stopping doing a fucking to-do list. And I know this sounds counterproductive, I know it does, I hear you. Having a list of all the things you need to do with absolutely like no prioritization metric, that is going to be overwhelming every single time you do it. You have to both reach a deadline on a big project you're doing for your boss, and you need to clip your toenails. Why are they on the same list? We are rejecting the to-do list. So I've always done this thing where I split up my to-do to-do list. Basically, I take an A4 like lined notepad and I'll write out quick ticks, tasks, projects, and my schedule, so that for each day I do this. It sounds insane. It's not insane. You're gonna spend that time trying to remember like what you have to do or to prioritize anyway, so you might as well write it down properly. Once you think about it, you realize how ridiculous it is that we're writing to-do lists that are like shopping lists. So to talk you through it, the quick ticks are things that take you up to 5 minutes. So I'm talking like check Slacks, message manager about annual leave, I'm talking clip your fucking toenails. Those are up to 5 minutes. Then you have tasks which are like 5 to 30 minutes. So this could be review a report that someone else is sending you. So it's not you, it's not taking a long time, but it would take a chunk of time to go through it. And then projects are like the big boys. Like these are probably going to be split into a few tasks. So if you need to prepare a presentation for your boss, this can be split into like planning the structure, doing the research, fleshing it out, reviewing it, like all of these things. You can like break those down. If you spend your Monday morning writing out your master to-do list for the week, I promise you, you're already going to be 10 times less overwhelmed, because one of the biggest issues we have with like procrastination and feeling like you can't get on top of things and feeling like you just have like 50,000 things to do is because it looks like you have 50,000 things to do. And as soon as you have it written out like that, and say with the project, you've then looked at your week and you've been like, oh, well, Tuesday morning, I actually have a few hours where I don't have meetings. Let me just block that out in my diary, time blocking to put that in. And you just instantly have this visibility over what your whole week looks like. That is life-changing. Like, I cannot tell you how life-changing it is, because there's just visibility is one of the biggest things. One of my top tips with this is to make sure that you always say you do your like projects, then break that down into tasks underneath it, because otherwise a project is always going to feel so big, and a project is only ever an accumulation of tasks, and tasks are only ever an accumulation of quick ticks. So you can start breaking things down. So you know when you've needed to start a project for ages and it's like looming over you and you're feeling super stressed about it. It could be your dissertation, it could be a big report you need to do for your boss, it could be a client pitch, whatever your work is or studenthood is. You know when you spend that first session just like getting to grips with it and just being like, oh, it's not actually that big, it just needs to be like all of these different things. You're going to be doing that at the beginning of every week, and I promise you it will change your life. I love this technique so much that I got so fed up of using like double page spread notebook planners that I went to design myself. Literally just design myself one that split it into the page that I write out every day. And then if you don't know, I posted it on my Instagram story and everyone went a little bit wild and was like, sell them. And I was like, you do not encourage Grace to take on more things. Like, I have no self-control. I have not a single bit of self-control when it comes to any opportunity. Like, if there is something that looks shiny and fun and I'd enjoy it and it would make me money, I'm an addict. Anyway, so I did that. This is not a new business. I cannot stress enough how much this is not a new business. However, I did decide to do not one, not two, but 3 designs. And that was because I decided that there are just lots of different people in this world. I'd like a funky planner, but then I know that Ben from accounts is gonna want his lovely navy blue cloth bound planner with gold writing, and Kim Kardashian West is going to want this that matches her skincare line. So here we are. As I said, no self-control, but today was my first day using this planner. Quite frankly, might be the best day of my life. Is this not the best thing you've ever seen? So basically, just to take you through it, to give you a deep dive, we've got quick ticks here, we've got tasks here, we've got projects here, we've got schedule here, and then we've got 3 non-negotiable tasks I'll get done today, which I'll talk about in a second, and then we've got 1 habit I'm keeping today. The Atomic Habits thing, if you haven't read Atomic Habits, read Atomic Habits, but basically just the small changes are what make the big changes, right? So just like tiny little things every day. Stop thinking that you need to change everything. Tiny little bits are going to make the biggest difference. Honestly, having to do this today, best day of my life. And then just a quick whistle stop tour of the rest of it. here's the contents. We've got forward, how to use, getting to know me, yearly planning, monthly planning, weekly planning, daily planning, and notes. I just didn't want to make it overcomplicated. Like, there are so many planners that are like asking you how many shits you've taken that day. It's not necessary. I don't want that. I just want an effective way to be able to plan my things. And then there's like a productivity self-evaluation, because it's really, really, really important to know what you do best rather than working against it. And then we've got like mind maps and stuff. But the majority of the planner, like 250 pages, is just your weekly and daily planning. So that's good. We love her. I basically just decided to set it up for pre-order because A, the amount of people that said they wanted a planner, the stock would have cost 300 grand. 300,000 of Queen Lizzie's pounds. And I also don't want to wait, because it's only like a little passion project. Like, I don't want to get inventory and then it create waste and everything. So it's going to be on a pre-order from the 30th of August until the 1st of September. So my second big productivity tip is 3 non-negotiables. I showed you it in the planner, but basically every single day, stop getting overwhelmed. Stop it. Every day, just think of 3 things that if you did them, they would make that day a success. Again, I think we think too big and we set ourselves up for failure by being like, I need to do this and this and this and this. And if it's like, of course we need to do more than 3 things a day. Of course we do. But there's probably 3 core things that actually, if you did nothing else that day and did those 3 things, that would make a real difference to whether that day is moving you forward. So they can be working out, they can be finishing a proposal, they can be finally booking that doctor's appointment you've needed to book for ages, they can be any of these things. What I would say about them is make them realistic, but also don't make them ones that you can tick off. The Mockingjay. Don't make them something that you're going to be able to take off within the first 5 minutes of your day as well, because come on. One of the reasons I love this technique so much is because it allows you to kind of make every day a success. Like, even if you're super overwhelmed or you have pretty much a whole day of back-to-back meetings and you feel like you're never going to get anything done, 3 things, 3 tiny things, it makes all the difference, because otherwise I feel like we do half of that because we're so overwhelmed, aiming to do more. Break it down, stop setting yourself up for failure. 3 things. Okay, tip number 3 is time blocking. I would sell my soul to whoever created the time block. I don't know why I'm still doing this as if I am in the Hunger Games. Time blocking is the most effective way to plan your time. When I put my daily schedule up on Instagram, on my Instagram story every day, everyone's like, when did you block out this time? This morning. Or maybe earlier in the week where I'd done my to-do table and I'd seen a big project and I'm like, where am I gonna fit this in this week? Because I know it needs to be done this week, but currently it's not scheduled in, and I will find a free 2 hours and literally block it out as if it's a meeting. But time blocking is based on the kind of principles of like autopilot and task batching. So understanding that if you're like constantly jumping from your emails to a task to a quick tick to a project, you're never really going to get into the flow of it. Like, you're never really going to get into autopilot. By creating these time blocks, you're allowing yourself to get into autopilot and to get into the right headspace and to not feel like you're running around like a fucking headless chicken all the time. I think it's also really important in helping you decipher what parts of the day you need to be really concentrated for, because I think if we think that you need to be concentrated for the entire 8 hours of your workday, you're physically not going to be able to. I know you think you are, but even say when I was studying for finals, even if I was doing a full day in the library, like time that I'd actually have my head down would only be like 6-7 hours, and that was like over a 12-hour library day. So I really think that you think you can spend more time concentrating than you actually can, and you want to know that actually like some of this is like light work and some of this is deep work, which will be the times where you really get in, get concentrated and do your work. So for example, this afternoon I have 3 calls, and they're at 2, 3 and 4, so they're in my calendar for those times. I'm not going to be it's not going to be head down concentrated at that time, but I need other blocks. So I have like a block for filming this. I also have a block for doing one of my projects. It just starts to like make sense. And the reason the to-do table kind of like feeds into this is it gives you really clear visibility of what you need to block for, because those projects you're going to need to block into your week. I think one of the reasons we become so overwhelmed is because we know we need to do all of these things, but we don't know when we're going to do them, and you need to just iron that out. And you just need to be able to allow your brain a mix of light work and deep work within the day, otherwise you're literally just going to turn into brain soup. You're setting yourself up for failure. You cannot expect to be able to concentrate all the time. You need to be able to give yourself breaks. Number 4 is something that is not going to be for everyone, but if you can do it, is setting email alarms / email time blocks rather than checking your emails throughout the day. I think there was a study by like University of California, Irvine, that said that for each distraction it takes you 26 minutes on average to get back into something. So if you constantly have your emails popping up, it's gonna distract you. And you've got to not be surprised, because you know that's going to happen. Obviously, there'll be some jobs where you do actually need to check your emails every hour. So for the first 10 minutes of every hour, do that. But I think having them constantly pop up, I really think that if you can avoid that, then you really should, because otherwise you're just like working on something and you're like, oh, I'll just deal with this, oh, and you just never fully get into it, and then you're never able to really get into the flow and do your best work. You know I'm right. Number 5 is actually being aware of how long tasks take you. I think we think that tasks take us a lot less time than they actually do, and it means that you're always going to then try and fit more into your time blocks or into your day than is doable. So again, when I'm posting my schedules up on Instagram, that is based on what I know I can do in what time, and I very rarely stray from those. And I know that like, I'm not perfect at work in any way, but I do know myself and the work I need to do and how long it's going to take me really quite well. And that's been one of the most important things, because I cannot stress enough how much, if you keep setting yourself up for failure by planning too much in your day and then constantly missing your targets, for self-esteem, for morale, for productivity, it's just so bad, because you're constantly going to feel like you're not doing enough or you're failing. And actually, if that's continuously happening, no, the only way you're failing is you're failing in planning effectively, because you know that you can't get all of that done in a day, and now you're putting it in your diary to get it all done in a day, and then you're shocked when you don't do it for the 5th day in a row. Like, engage. Sorry, like really tough love, but this is what I tell myself the whole time. If I'm constantly getting annoyed about the same thing, change the way you do it. If you feel like you're bad at this, I would recommend spending a week or so kind of monitoring how long things take you. So if you think that usually actually composing a quick email will take you 5 minutes, you're probably going to find out it takes 10 to 15 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Especially if you're like towards the end of the day, any of these things, just start noting down how long your tasks that you spend a lot of time doing take you. And I think in no time, when you actually have like a better awareness of how long things take you, you'll be far better at planning. And each morning when you're like, what are the most important things out of the things I'm doing today, and then planning them in your day, you're going to have a lot better awareness of how long things are actually going to take you. And you're going to stop putting in a 15-minute break before a call that's probably going to run over by 5 minutes anyway, and you're probably going to be a bit drained. You're going to stop putting something in there that's exactly 15 minutes and actually takes you longer. Another thing that's kind of along the lines of this is my next point, which is taking breaks. I know this sounds ridiculous, it sounds both self-explanatory and it sounds like you've got your lunch break or whatever at work, but I think that we really underestimate how much we can get drained, especially from doing like deep work or continuously just like typing away and working for a bit. I do this like really unhinged and quite like sociopathic thing, which is I set myself a 10-minute timer to read, because that actually takes me completely out of my headspace and just like takes me away from my work so much that I can then start again in that 10 minutes. And of course, if you have space for a longer break, like it completely depends what you're doing, but it is highly effective in just understanding when and how long you need breaks for. So if you have a 2-hour time block and it's actually going to take you 2 hours, do not schedule something for right after that, or make sure it just ends just with like a little 15 minutes. I think we think it's more productive not to take breaks, but actually we end up doing a lot less lower quality work and feeling a lot more burnt out and frustrated and like cutting corners and all of this when we don't take breaks. We think it's good because we think we're pushing ourselves through, and I'm the first person to give this advice and not take any of it, but I think that's really important. Especially if I'm like really passionate about something or really excited about a project, or I'm close to a deadline, I'll work on something for hours and hours and hours, and then I'll really start to lag, and actually the best thing to do would just be to take a 10-minute break, but you just try and push through, but you know the right thing to do is just to take a 10-minute break. So I think that is really important. I also think I completely understand, it obviously completely depends on your line of work when you can take a break. Like obviously you're not gonna really want to be sitting in the office like with your novel out, but just go sit in the toilets like, if that's a problem, just like go sit in the toilet for 10 minutes. No one's gonna ask if you're doing a huge shit. Obviously, if you're close to a deadline, it goes without saying that there are times where this just can't be the case and you do just have to like plow on. But I think most of the time there is space for understanding how long you can work without a break and inputting things in there and planning, once again, not to set yourself up for failure. Okay, so if you're not sure on this, I think the most important thing to ask yourself is how long it takes you to lose concentration on a task, and understanding that this will be different across projects, tasks, and quick ticks. So for example, I can probably work on a project, as I said, for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, but quick ticks, if I'm blitzing through all my quick ticks, because it's so many different things, I can probably do like an hour tops. It's going to get a bit exhausting going through all of these different tasks after that point. So then you can time block with that in mind. The most important thing for you to take, if you take anything out of any of these tips that literally no one asked for, is to work alongside yourself. Like, do not work against yourself. If you can only concentrate for X amount of time, if you're better in the morning or better in the evenings, like any of these things, stop working against yourself and start working with your tendencies in mind, because otherwise it's going to be 10 times harder. Once you admit that actually like, oh no, this is the way I work best, and start working with that in mind rather than against that, life-changing. Next tip is to make your own deadlines. A lot of the time, particularly in a busy period at work, you're gonna have 23 deadlines on one day. Like, it's going to be in line with the end of the tax year, or in line with the end of the quarter, or like whatever it might be. And like, that is obviously such a recipe for overwhelm. One of the most important things you can do is actually giving yourself deadlines instead. So for example, I know I have a hectic week next week, so if something's due next Thursday, no it isn't, it's due this Thursday. And I know that sounds pretty self-explanatory, but like, uni was the first time I really got this, because so many of my tutorials would always fall on the same day. Like, I'd have a jam-packed thing of tutorials, so I'd be like, I have 10,000 words due on Thursday, and in my head then I was constantly doing all of these things. No, you have 2,500 due on the Friday before, then you have 2,500 due on the Monday, then you have 2,500 due on the, you know, just like actually spacing it out to be able to like assign yourself a deadline. And you can take time blocking into this too, so setting yourself the deadline and then making sure you have enough time to block with that deadline in mind. Then you're like, with no external factors, this does make sense. Rather than, I think a lot of the time we're like, this needs to be done by here, and we're like, there's actually no place for that to fit, or it could be done a bit earlier and then we could get this done. Next tip is focus enhancing apps. If you were here in the uni days, you know that Forest is my best friend. Forest is the app where you plant trees for when you're focused and you can't use your phone in that time, or you kill the tree. And it's life-changing. Use it. Use things that will help you. Use technology that's good. We love technology that's good, even though it's probably stealing our data and selling it to Elon Musk. For legal reasons, that was not a comment about Forest. I actually don't know if they have any link, but I'm just a joke. Next tip. Okay, very close to being finished. We have 3 small tips left. Number 1, turn off your notifications. I know it sounds drastic. And obviously don't turn off your notifications if you're a PA and you need to be answering someone all the time. But you'll check them more at the beginning. But honestly, not being completely controlled by whenever things just pop up is so important. Because remember that 26 minutes that you get distracted for every time you pick up something else? We're not allowing ourselves to do that. Just turn off your fucking notification, or at the very least put your phone on do not disturb in the workday. Second last tip, commit to tasks. Stop multitasking. I know we think it's important, but commit to tasks, commit to meetings. Just fucking commit. You'll get it done in half the time. It will be far better. You won't feel like you're always doing 1,000 things at once. Of course we sometimes need to multitask. Of course, when I'm in a meeting that's clearly become quite useless for me, of course I will start multitasking. But I feel like we have this idea that we need to be doing 53,000 things at once, and it actually just compromises everything. So just taking down the multitasking where you can. Productivity over busyness. Comprende? And then the final tip, to do your to-do table at the end of your working day. So before your next day, you know when you're like, oh, I didn't get to this, I didn't get to this, I didn't get to this, channel it straight into your to-do table, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to start the next day without that form of urgency of like all of these different things. And you don't need to start your day with urgency. No one wants to start their fucking day with urgency. So say I'd finished today and I've done all of these things, and like, this is just at the beginning of the day, so what, like 20 other things will come up like here. Then before going home, she's at home, before leaving the office tomorrow, I'll do my one for the next day. And then just when I open, it's just so nice. You arrive at work the next morning, you open, you're clear. Then you can just create 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3, around the first 3 you're gonna do, time to block them into your day. Mwah, chef's kiss. We're all happy, we're all overachieving, and we all tie our self-worth to our productivity. For clarity, not condoning. Also the only way I know how to exist, so get over it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, just wanted to make sure that there was everything in one place. I highly recommend not trying to do all of these things at once, because once again, then it's just about like, we have these sprints of trying to be really good at self-care, sprints of trying to be really good at productivity. Just pick a few of them, like the 3 non-negotiables or the to-do tables or time blocking, and just try and work those ones in there. Gradual, slow and steady wins the race. I've never believed the hare and the tortoise. When you think of the hare and the tortoise, it's obviously ridiculous. Like, obviously the hare would win. No? Are we on the same page here? Because I feel like that, anyway, slow and steady does win the race. And I have a passion for being more productive so that I can spend more time doing what I actually want to do. Let's laugh. Have a great day. And remember, it's not all about productivity, but when you're working, you might as well be doing it well. And we all have goals to reach. Okay, bye. Okay, bye.